Do we have Andy? Wendy, are you online? Wendy? It seems we have a lot of participants from Kosovo. Great. Okay. It seems we are already 21. So it depends on you, Egils, if you'd like to start. Let us just start, and those who come, we can accept.
Okay. So, is the screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as in this project, we have these guest lectures or training seminars, and our task from University of Tartu is to also participate in these sections. And we decided that due to this topic of digital media, that a good option would be to talk about visual storytelling. So it's more like introduction level, and later on the second part we will do video editing. So for this program it seemed very appropriate, and otherwise image processing topics might not be so on the spot. And so we will continue with our visual storytelling. So, and let's simply look at what we can identify here. So those who have microphones, like if you want to comment, you can simply turn them on, because with this mode, I don't see if you raise your hand in this Chrome, in this Hangout. So, but what we have here is the most common types of visual media. So before it was for visual part was film and photography, but due to advances in our technology, mostly everything is now in digital space, and we have software like Adobe Premiere Pro and other ones that allow us to create a lot of visual material. So in the center part, of course, we have an image. So image is the basic form. It's used in commercials, billboards. We take photos. Maybe someone takes them every day, but definitely we see photos every time we use some smart device, and visually it conveys a lot of information. So what else we have from from subcultures is memes. Still, this is a way how to convey information, and some companies might choose to make a specific meme that goes viral, promotes their product, and essentially earn more money. Or let's say university wants to promote their students or their work, and they create something very catchy, and the outcome is that the brand or the university becomes more popular. In the top left corner, we see a artificial image. So it's this would be something we create in Photoshop. So it's like a drawing, or essentially something we would create artificially. So it's still very good for some stock photos and let's say products. On bottom left, we have a GIF. So now currently a lot of social media platforms allow for images, videos, and GIFs to be shared. And GIF is one of the mediums that can be used for, of course, entertainment purposes, or as well brand promotion as well. So in GIF, in sense, it already tells a very short story, or there's some kind of idea behind it. And of course, we have videos. So videos are a very popular medium. We watch television or watch films. So this is very, very well known for everybody. So, but what else we have besides videos of real things? We have animations. So animations can be drawings, can be, for example, cartoons. It can be also 3D graphics, so and other methods, but essentially creating some kind of animations. And of course, they're used to tell a story. And what else we have? We have charts and graphs. So, for example, a pie chart of my life. So it's some kind of visually catching way how to display data. And the last one is called infographics. So as like visual media, like just looking at numbers and plain text or plain graphs is not interesting. This type of infographics has a visually catching way how to basically provide some kind of information in a very nice packaged way. So for example, it could be a booklet for a traveling agency, or some kind of funny or interesting statistics, but they're not shown in numbers, but as some kind of infographic style. So in short, when we talk about visual storytelling, it's about nowadays everything related to digital media, and we can also connect it with sound, voice, music, different audio samples to tell the story even better. But of course, the main part is an image, or the basic one is an image. And for example, National Geographic has a competition every year where they select their best image, and such images can have they can convey a story very well. And there's this famous saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we probably all have seen some world famous images, and the story is already embedded in them. And as well, just a fact about visual perception, that people are more likely to respond positively to visual stimulus, in the sense that there's some kind of image instead of reading text. And there's also a reason why, for example, many of news agencies use very nice graphical commercials to lead into the news segments to catch visually the audience. Otherwise, it would be too boring. And of course, nowadays, a lot of this visual storytelling or media is moving to social platforms like Twitter, Telegram, Instagram, and essentially all these influencers, they create some form of a story about themselves, about the brand, about the product they want to sell. And nowadays, seeing commercials is becoming very annoying. So if we just see a commercial, so a lot of marketing strategies involve creating a commercial within some kind of populistic segment in a way that that it's even hard to understand that you have been given a promotional material. So it's so well blended in that now you might not even notice that you have been exposed to a brand commercial. It's can be very simple stuff that the promoter takes a drink from Coca-Cola, and by this simple action you promote the brand, or they do some action and there's a zoom in shot of their watch, for example, some Swiss watch, and that's essentially a promotional segment for a company. So, and about this media creation cycle, for those who already are master students and they have worked with these things, probably they know even in depth and more steps that you could add, but I boiled it down to 4 steps. So for visual creation, it's of course you start with the idea. You can make some vision boards, you plan out all the actions you want to do, especially if you do some short films, then you figure out what kind of shots you want to take from which angles, and just prepare in this way. And of course, a big part is target audience, because you need to know whom you're presenting your story. So for example, if university wants to make a promotional campaign, they need to know to whom they're promoting the idea. Are they high school students? So then the message can be, let's say, finish high school, get a good degree and get a better life. or if they are the bachelor students, then the message should be different how to involve them in, for example, master studies. So acquisition, this of course is the physical part of taking images. Usually nowadays, even with your smartphones, you can make quite okay images, but of course, professional equipment is always, it will always, like if the person knows how to use them, the results should be visually more pleasing. And you don't even need to buy expensive, like a video camera, because most of like Canon and Nikon cameras have, besides just taking photos, taking video, you can take videos, and with a wide variety of lenses to create like the scenes you want. So even with semi-professional camera, you can start creating quite nice stories. And once you have gathered your data, most likely not everything will be used, and you go to editing part. If it's just an image, then maybe you can fix some colors, color schemes, maybe cut some parts out and just make it more pleasant. Or if it's a video, then you start the video editing process, and then it's already a separate science. Essentially, you can add sound, text, mix different kind of scenes to tell your story. And then the last one is distribution. So what kind of channels you want to use to distribute your media. For example, nowadays, social media is a very popular channel, or maybe you have some local newsletter or something like that. But usually nowadays, it's distribution in social platforms. So we will talk about briefly about this storytelling part, because just having good video materials or images is not enough. Usually what makes them more relevant is the story behind them. And usually it starts with the idea, or if you have a project or somebody asks you for some kind of to finish or do a project, then you start with this general idea what you want to achieve. Afterwards, like the next step is define a problem and a takeaway. So this is simply one of many approaches how you can plan your visual story. But this problem and takeaway, later I'll show a graph where it's explained better. And for example, the better the story is, so create a visual journey, the more engaged your audience will be. And the more engaged, of course, the better response, and then you can deliver your message. And it's recommended to have rather simple visual messages. So, of course, you can use CGI and visual effects, but if it's too much, then it can distract the audience from the core message you want to send. So just enough is good. And fun fact that currently human attention span is like around 8 seconds. So this 2018, maybe 2021, it's already became like decreased. But at the same time, we have so much content to watch and no attention span. whatsoever. So, and this creates a perspective of what, let's say, if you want to have promotional material for a university, then it would not make any sense to make it longer, for example, than 7 seconds, and your message should be clearly described within this time span. And then you know that you have matched this what audience can, like, you will cover the largest audience base. It's like, for example, people who write blog posts, so it's still delivering a story. And if they are too long, what happens? Usually, person who is interested reads the first few chapters and then pretty much starts skimming the content just to like kind of get the general idea. But maybe there are some crucial details that they actually do not read, and this is just because of lack of interest or reduced attention span. So let's assume that you have some kind of project in mind or just general direction. So I'll take this promoting your school as an example. But you don't have anything concrete. So there are many idea generation methods, but I just listed 3 of them. So for example, you try to soak in as much information as possible, and there might be a case that you hear something or relate to something. Let's say you watch a podcast or you go out with your friends and you hear something or some idea that you can actually use for this storytelling, and it can be a very good start. Also, if you don't have like these concrete ideas, it's always good to share with others. Of course, this is very common to create discussion groups, and as everybody has slightly different point of view, you'll hopefully get a positive critique about your ideas, and hopefully they can evolve into a good product in the end. And of course, personal experience. So stories, some personal events that you might use as a narrative or a story to build up what you want to essentially convey to the viewer. So this problem and a takeaway. So let's look at 2 examples. So what is the problem? Traveling doesn't make us happy. And what we would want to deliver to the audience is this takeaway: appreciating what we have now makes us happy. So if we would simply write some messages and show it to the viewer, they would simply read them and they would not have any emotional connection. So the aim of this storyteller or this visual story is to somehow engage the viewer so that they realize that there is a problem, and later on a solution or some kind of message is given how to solve or how to address this problem. And for example, other one is people don't know what it's like to come back after war, and the solution or the takeaway, the reader will get to understand what that feels like. And of course, the task of this, the one who creates the story, is to guide the person who will experience it in a way that they almost themselves achieve or come to these conclusions. So it's like a trickery in some sense. So this is a very interesting way how to represent it. So this, of course, can be applied to general stories or visual stories as well. So now here we have this clarity and fear. So clarity would be complete understanding about something, arriving to a new level of understanding, and fear would be some uncertainty. Everybody is probably some uncertain about themselves in some area in their lives. So, and maybe this can be used to relate or realize problems. And the trick here is that we need to have a default state to like we have to relate to the audience. If we go straight to the problem or goes like how to solve it, it's essentially this audience is not engaged enough to follow our story we want to tell. So the idea would be that we relate with the audience. So I will take example of let's say a car company wants to sell some new model, and the visual scene would start with the default state. For example, a person is going with the bus. Maybe the bus is late, or maybe there's some kind of like a train is not going or something like that. So, and we all in our lives probably have experienced something similar, and we can relate to this situation. And later on, we realize what is the problem. The problem for us would be that we don't see our loved ones on time. We miss a birthday. We don't get somewhere on our New Year's Eve, and so the next scene would look like that. So that it's some kind of we see that missing our bus because bus didn't come. It's a problem, and how to actually solve it. And for example, the takeaway could be that we see that somebody else drives by with the car, and there's, for example, a scene of happy family within the car. So, and this is a very good trick that many commercials use, that through half or even more than half of the commercial, you don't even understand about what the product is. And only at the very last moment, there's this branding stage. So when you have this, they have told the story, and then right at the end, they actually show what the brand or what the brand involvement is. So at this real reveal of the takeaway would be that I myself would want to have such options, and applying it into reality will be a scene that I myself am driving this new car. So I have transitioned from default state to where buses don't come. I'm late on a New Year's Eve, or I miss something. I realize that this can be solved with a personal transport vehicle. I see that others have done it successfully, and I myself go buy a new car, and they show a very smiley, like very happy person who has bought the car with the brand logo right at the end. So this would be this full cycle of a story. But if a commercial is presented like let's assume some kind of somebody selling Audi or BMW, and you have a straight image of BMW and big red letters, buy now, super cheap. Nowadays, it's too intrusive. Nobody would buy it, or maybe somebody would like the discounts. But essentially, if the audience has went through this story and has related to it, then this engagement or potential outcome is a lot better than just showing some facts and just visuals. So the story part is extremely important. So if you look now at every commercial, you can simply analyze of what kind of story they're trying to tell you and how they're trying to engage you at the beginning. So in some ways relate to you, and what they propose as a solution, like to your, let's say, this default state or some problems. And here, just to mention about some storytelling techniques. So it's good for this idea generation. So conflict. So a lot of good movies usually involve, like if it's maybe even comedies, some form of conflict. It can be physical, it can be emotional, and so forth, or man versus nature. So there's some kind of conflict that needs to be resolved. And the idea is that we're interested in this path, how it is being solved. Then next one is structure. So there's kind of steps how to achieve or how to guide the audience from the start to the end of the message with the maximum possible engagement. So simplicity is that there's just enough content that person is not lost in these visual effects that are created. And contrast. So popular contrasts are, like, let's say, rich and poor, or contrasting ideas, liberals, Democrats. So some kind of contrast that creates engagement. Or, for example, black and white even is let's say you could start some kind of promotional material with black and white imagery, and the contrast switch would go to colorful images, like when some kind of problem is resolved. And it's a very nice visual trick how to see that something has changed. And size. So this is a famous Alfred Hitchcock's rule that in the scene, this size of the object also shows the importance of this person or object in the story. So the bigger the object, the bigger the importance. So just even more additional steps you can take. So yeah, it's recommended to use images with text, and the primary way would be a visual representation, because it's faster than just reading some kind of small text or some kind of small message. So if it can be done visually, then it's always better to be done visually. So you need this first impression part, is that usually movies or some info commercials, they create a hook, something that instantly draws your attention, And once they have your attention, they try to tell what they want to tell you. But okay, this first impression is very important. So if you start watching something and it's not interesting enough, you'll switch to different channel or a different video or something like that. So make it move is something that is moving in the scene is more interesting to watch than something that is completely static. So it's just that's why, as I mentioned, news channels use quite nice 3D visual effects to even to show the clock or fill in time between episodes. So build an arc. So even an 8-second commercial would have some kind of beginning, middle, and end. So it's like this small journey. And as I mentioned about this conflict, and the idea is like what happens along the way and where does it take us. So we know that there's a conflict, but we need the story to live through it. So relate to people. So this is a big one. So each visual story, like if it doesn't relate to anybody, nobody will watch it or they will not be engaged. So let's assume somebody makes a commercial about space technology nobody has ever heard of and nobody understands. There's no relation to it, but if you somehow relate to humans on in a different way through, let's say, some what everyday activities we do and create a hook with something like that, then you can start to sell your unique space age product as a last thing in this commercial. So as well, teaching some lessons. So it depends on the media. So for example, some blogger goes to some desert or goes traveling and has a difficult situation, then he realizes that being with your family is very important. So when he shows it with 4 pictures and a small story, and then he gets a very good view count. So use effective images. So if possible, use the most eye-catching visuals as possible. So high quality images, good scenery, and so forth. So don't drown in details. So if there's some kind of clear message, then it should always be known. And again, just remember about this Hitchcock's rule. And these would be recommended for storytelling. So in some ways, it should be interesting and appeal to your audience. So whatever this target audience might be. So, and for example, this visual media should correspond to what topics you want to like explain or convey. So for example, in YouTube, there's, for example, this monetization where commercials are shown in the within the video. So let's say a good example would be that you look a video about cars and there's a commercial about buying a new car. So then this content, even this commercial, is put within the original work, but it kind of corresponds to general topic of the of this narrative that's going on. But if I watch a some kind of I don't know, funeral place arrangement for gardeners, something like that, and suddenly I have image commercial about buying a car, so it kind of doesn't fit in the place. So same with visual materials is that let's assume you want to promote your school, but you use visual material that is highly unrelated to activities in the school. So you might show, I don't know, some for example, completely unrelated materials. So as well, just the next one is about storytelling. Just take into account that there's start and beginning, that there is a message you want to convey, grabbing attention. So usually pictures look better than in real life, so it's a very good way to get attention. So, and of course, you can make visual stories only with video or images, but if you add text or add audio, or you have music that is very well paced with the video editing you're doing, then of course this outcome will be a lot better. Keep it simple, clear, and of course, once you have created your metric, it's good to evaluate how well the audience has received it. So if, let's say, it's a video in YouTube, then a metric could be view count and like to dislike ratio. Or if it's somewhere else, like Instagram, maybe some how many times it's shared and or watched and so forth. So what not to do is chasing some kind of idea that is already present in the market, or another company has done it, and yeah, so it's already too late. If you have some kind of a narrative and you try to force it to some kind of like uncorresponding visuals. So let's say you're given a set of video material that you cannot change anymore, and you're asked to build a specific narrative. So it could be very difficult because there's no correspondence between these two. And always when telling a story, this the story itself comes first, and only then all the visual parts. And also one thing that companies or the ones who are creating the story is to not send the same type of, let's say, if it's a commercial or promotional material on all platforms. So if I would be subscribed to, let's say, a company that I really like, I'm subscribed in Telegram, Instagram, WhatsApp, and maybe YouTube. And they, for example, offer me the same commercial in all these platforms I have subscribed. So this is not recommended. A better way would be that they build a story through multiple platforms, essentially. And then it so individual piece can be understood on its own, but this, let's say, company message, it's like told across multiple platforms, and then it's a lot more. You can engage it a lot better. So again, with this image part, so if there's too much, let's say some artistic scenes, a person might get confused and not really understand what is happening. And if possible, use audio and text, so it always helps to convey this message. So these were about, let's say, short stories you want to create. But for example, this is example of like, let's say, a hero's story through many literature works and films. So this is example from Rick and Morty. It's a cartoon, but this cycle they follow in every episode. So there's a comfort zone. We want to change something. We get into unfamiliar situation. We try to adapt it. We get away with success. Something has really changed. We return to our original situation, but there's some kind of change has happened to us. So, and if we go, remember this previous slide about going from this fear state to clarity. Essentially, this clarity would mean that we have evolved or understood something better. We have achieved some kind of evolution, even through this small story. And this wheel of 8 steps, it's very common in many TV shows, movies, and literature works. So this is an example of how brands tell their stories. So what I mentioned before, the transmedia. So transmedia meaning that across multiple media platforms. So news, social networks, and so forth. So for example, this signature story would be this main company narrative, like let's say saving the earth or providing green technologies. Historic, so some kind of here this example of the underdog or the hero's journey, like some kind of involvement, how the brand evolves like a character. So for example, even message architecture. So it means that this brand message is consistent throughout their life cycle. So let's say a company has a life cycle, and this message is not conflicting with their previous views. So it's like consistent across multiple years. And some kind of brand persona, for example, Gucci, people who buy Gucci, they're kind of associated with this brand, and you can get some kind of feeling maybe, or who or what kind of person might relate to such a brand in general. And these are 6 examples how companies share their visual stories or essentially their content. So the company can do whatever product or service, but they still need to inform the customers about it. And there are just 6 ways, and there are more ways, of course, but these are the most popular ones. So some original content. So nowadays, if you look at commercials, they sometimes look like small art clips, mini movies, or something like that. So short story, but something even original. User content. So a customer creates a content for the brand, essentially about how he likes the brand. For example, behind the scenes. So let's say a brand has an Instagram message, for example, Tesla or something, and they show what happens in the factory, how clean everything is, and how the robots are doing everything behind the scenes. Some kind of a short, let's say, clickbait or a very short commercial, or just a image, but with a link to more relevant content. So I would get a commercial about a car with the one image and a link with it directly takes me to official car dealers, for example. And of course, brands themselves use directly visual storytelling in different kind of promotional materials to capture the audience and essentially get more clients. And nowadays, what is popular is live streams, or let's say some famous person who represents a brand has a live stream. Let's say I know that live streams in YouTube and I think Instagram or Twitter. I think Twitter as well. So, anyways, like regardless of the platform, the idea is that in a live stream, the person is more relatable. There's this feeling that the audience can engage with this, let's say, movie star who also promotes a brand. So by writing a comment and somehow feel more related or more would have more elevated feeling that they had connection with this superstar who might not even read their messages, but there's still this illusion of interaction. So at least in the chat, people see that other people see their messages, and maybe this person who is the main person doing this live stream would read their message and like react to it. So nowadays you can see that it's quite heavily geared to social media platforms and using them to their maximal potential. And in some ways, once the visual story is created, it's very cheap to distribute it to the audience, because one viral video or clip can have thousands or millions of viewers, and they link it or recommend it to their friends and so forth. And then it's almost like free marketing after the main this visual story is created. So we spoke about the story part, and let's look at this visual part. So as I mentioned before, usually nowadays these at least pictures, we know that best option is some kind of semi-professional, professional camera, but the same cameras can be used for video taking, and they achieve very good quality. And this is one example used in cinematography, golden rule of threes, or golden rule of three, or rule of three, is that if the frame is divided in 9 blocks, then the objects or person who is of interest would be placed in these intersections. And if this simple rule is followed, then this scenery or this image somehow feels a lot better and natural. And so, for example, here as well, you can see that this arrangement of cups are kind of following this like segments where this cup is at intersection. We have some pot here and so forth. So it looks very pleasing for the eyes. So another example, you can see that this person is also placed quite close to an intersection, and this bridge behind the scenes as well. It kind of sits on the top part. Positioning. So let's say you want to do an interview or like do a close-up of a person. Then if you still follow this rule, like the scene will look more natural. So the person is like the head is closer to this intersection, and with even closer shots, it's recommended that it doesn't matter how close you go to the face, but if you keep the eyes in the scene, then you can still have very nice images or videos. But if the eyes are off the screen, then suddenly your visual material will not look that nice. And eyes are usually also used a lot to convey emotions, and it's like quite important for showing a message or what the character is thinking about. So another strategy is to use central frame. So by this one, we understand that the object in the center is the most important part of this scene. So these are two very nice examples. So another one is that we use the scene or the environment to create one point perspective. So it's in some ways the scene is pointing at our main character that is here. So for example, in these two images, so the upper one, you can see that if we draw lines from the wall, they will end up to our character that should be the main focus, or on the image below. This lady she's standing in a place where essentially all these bridges and this side are almost pointing at her, and our attention kind of drifts to this place where we should be looking. So this is a very good way how to guide attention. Another one is display of importance and emotions. So with using different camera tricks, so let's say we can change focus, and here on the upper image we see that somehow this shooting action or this bullet is very important because it's drawn to the foreground. And in this second image, we could guess, for example, what is the emotional state of this person, because as, for example, from this Alfred Hitchcock rule, this person is smaller in the scene than, for example, the foreground with these two men sitting, and it's already one image can show you approximately what is happening in the scene or how the person is, for example, feeling about themselves. So this is example of lead space, and this means that if a person is talking and looking to the left, there should be more free space in the scene on the left side. So if the person would be looking like and speaking to the right side, more space should be on the right side. So it's just it helps create more pleasing results. So next one is about the camera distance. So here you can essentially with cameras you can manipulate two things: distance and what kind of lenses you're using. So based on this camera distance, you can create different kind of shots. So this is an example of extreme wide angle, full shot, and medium long. So you can see this difference. So it's now it's simply this camera placement, and based on what you want to create in your media, you would choose one of these shots, and it's simply by moving this camera from one distance to another. And for example, this medium short is very popular for interviews and let's say in some not like sitcoms or like where people are talking and standing and talking, so very appropriate. For example, cowboy shot is because for cowboys, when they wear these guns by the side of their hip, around there the gun ends. So medium close-up and close-up. So of course these ones that are focused more on the face are like as well in cinematography to capture essentially the motion of the person or show some importance of what is happening. The choker, so it's simply where the cut is right at the neck and at the top of the head, and extreme close-up. So this, of course, is usually as well used for capturing emotions, but as well in these extreme close-ups, you will start to see imperfections of the face, like everybody has maybe some imperfections. So this is the mode where it's the easiest to see such things. And of course, the last one is macro shots. So something very, very close. And you can maybe take pictures of small things and or maybe bugs or some very small details, but you can use macro shots as well to get some kind of message across. For example, a good idea of a macro shot would be in, let's say, a scary movie, that some kind of scene of, let's say, this ghost or villain or something that is attacking is seen as a reflection in the pupil. So such a macro shot can be used very, like in a very professional way to add even more information to this image. So, and usually as well, people's eyes convey a lot of emotion. So, and this is just a recap. So, based on which part you want to capture, then you approximately know like these styles of capturing. And in internet, you can look up based on what kind of type of story you want to create and what is the most appropriate shot for this kind of story. And visually, the same ones would look like this. So if this person would be in the scene. So let's go over popular shots as well. So just a classical, this is eye level. So we would take our camera and just take a picture of something, how we see it. So low angle. So this should, so this is as well. It displays that the person so there's like a power play. So as we're looking from below, this person is more superior to us or somehow creates danger to us. So a famous scene from Matrix. Other one, high angle. So this would be about weakness or vulnerability. So high angle shot. Touch angle tilt. So this would mean So this is a camera trick to show that there's some kind of disturbance or maybe some dissatisfaction or some kind of like usually disturbance or mental disturbance happening, and just tilting the camera already gets across this idea. So over the shoulder shot, so a lot used in different kind of series, like two people talking, so very, very popular. And here as well is a comment that like if there would be a second over shoulder shot from this lady's side, then it should be selected in a way that when the scenes are switching, you shouldn't have confusion that this lady is sitting on the, let's say, on the left side and this man is sitting on the right side. So it's just by correctly editing the video and having correct positions, it's like more pleasant for the viewer, or it feels more natural to view this scene. Top shot or bird's eye view. Now it's if you have maybe a drone or you're standing on top of a building, and then it's like you can take such pictures. Point of view shot. So this is maybe it's like you're placed in how the character sees the world, or an object that is looked at. So something like this. Establishing shot. So this is used in many movies and series. Essentially, the first shot before something more is happening or some scene actually starts, or it can be the start or the, for example, the end shot to transition out and of this episode or material. Master shot. So this would be a shot showing where all the action is happening, and all the related shots would be within this space essentially. Insert shot. So this would mean that there's, let's say, a conversation. There's a short clip of a watch, and the conversation continues. So it shows that this watch or the time is of great importance to the video or to this message you're conveying. So these were the most famous shots. Of course, there are more, but these are the most famous ones. And of course, the last part for this one is about lenses. As I mentioned before, one is distance, other one is lens, and this can get very, very expensive because these lenses are quite expensive. But for different kind of situations, you might need different kind of lens. So, and this is just a comparison between Nikon and Canon. What kind of lenses for what kind of situation and what is the price. So you can go, for example, from very cheap $100 to something like $2,000 or more dollars. So there's something to choose in each section, and it's simply based on situation. You will change the lenses accordingly. So this is example of how the image looks like through different lenses, and idea is that the person on the scene, like this area he's occupying, is not really changing, but what is changing is actually how the background warps around him. So you can see this 18 millimeter, 35, 50 millimeter lens, and this one 90mm lens. And just pay attention that you see how this background is coming closer and closer and closer in each picture. And here is an example as well. This background is moving even closer, so 300mm lens. And for capturing faces, the best option is 85mm lens. So this ranges from 50 to 90, somewhere around there. So 85 would give the most natural appearance of the face. But if we have, for example, 18 or 10mm lenses, then this image is distorted too much and the face is not natural anymore. So if you go with natural looking shots for the face, then this range is around 50 to 90mm and it would look very appropriate. So this one as well, comparison between how far is the person and how this shot looks like. You can see that with 16mm, this lady, it's like she wouldn't have this shape of the face in real life, but this around 85 is the best option for such shots. And here is example of lens focal lengths and what type of lenses and the usage you might want to have. So for example, to capture landscape, you would need a wide angle lens with 21 to 35mm focal length. Or to take a portrait photos, medium telephoto and 80 to 135mm range. And for example, street and documentary, 35 to 70mm range. So, and all these topics we discussed is just introduction. Of course, if you would start to actively work in this field, you would probably know a lot more. And those who are working already, for them probably that's just some refreshing of some basic stuff. But by this, my presentation concludes, and thank you for listening. And maybe we have some questions from the audience. Okay, no questions.
A very silent audience, Egils.
Yes. Just for those who want to participate in the second one, tomorrow I will send what kind of software would be preferable for video editing, or maybe if you have your own software, then it's even better. So we'll try to make some short clips and do some video editing. For those who are already doing it maybe every day, or then it's not that interesting, but we'll just go through the basic things there.
Okay, you will send me this information and I'll share it with participants. Yes. Right. Okay. Okay.
I would want.
Yes,
I would want to know for whom they already knew everything I was talking about. I simply assume that if it's digital multimedia, then already everybody knows some parts of it or all of it.
Okay. For whom was it new? I don't know. Kosovo students, was this new or are you dealing with these things? Almost all of us, they say. Egils, I guess our multimedia students do have most of this knowledge. And there are some of them who are already working because they are master students, but not all, of course. And it was very nice to see. I got these comments about camera and how to take photos, pictures. I guess that was interesting as well. And I would really like to thank you for this very nice presentation, and it was really quite clear. I don't know, is there any other question? Any other question from the audience? No? So it seems okay. Then I'll wait for your information, Egils, and then see you on Friday, same time.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the main part, just wanted to mention from the storytelling, is that whenever now you watch commercials, probably for those who already are working in the field, it's very interesting to notice how they present the story and try to engage the audience in, like, what is the hook essentially, what is this relation to a person, and what is their solution to a problem they want to provide. So, and all of these visual media follow quite similar steps to get as much money and as much attention and as much for their like product essentially.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much then. If there is no other questions. Okay, thanks a lot. See you on Friday then.
Okay, see you on Friday, everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.